Imagine a scorchingly hot summer day. The sun's just beating down, the ground's totally cracked, and right in the middle of it all is our main character, an incredibly thirsty, honestly kind of comically desperate cartoon crow. So, in this explainer, we're jumping straight into the classic Aesop's fable, The Crow and the Pitcher. As an English learner, you're going to find that breaking down a story like this is just the perfect way to supercharge your reading skills. Because let's be real, as a fellow language enthusiast, I've realized that learning vocabulary through engaging stories is infinitely better than just memorizing boring lists. When you connect words to a funny bird trying to solve a high-stakes problem, those phrases actually stick in your brain. So we're going to jump right in, picking up some fantastic high-level vocabulary and really powerful verb phrases, all by watching how our feathered friend handles a major crisis.
So I'm going to read our opening line here, and I want you to really try to feel the sheer drama of the situation. On a scorching summer's day, a crow, half dead with thirst, flew about in search of water. Man, when I read that, I just visualize the scene. I mean, being so parched you're literally half dead, that is some serious desperation right there. But look closely at that starting verb phrase, flew about in search of, right? He isn't just, casually gliding around enjoying the breeze. No, he's on a frantic, active mission. He is actively looking for something essential to his very survival.
Okay, let's dive into this and really break down what he's going through. We've got three key phrases here that totally set up this dire situation. First up is half dead with thirst, which is an adjective phrase that just means, well, extremely thirsty. Then there's the prepositional phrase in search of, meaning looking for. A great way to remember this one is just thinking about everyday stuff. Like, you know how you might run about your house in search of your lost keys when you're running late for work? Same idea. And finally, the phrasal verb come upon, which means finding something completely by chance. So just picture our tired crow, flying in search of water, desperately hoping to come upon an absolute miracle before it's too late.
And guess what? He finally comes upon a pitcher. Huge relief, right? Well, actually, scratch that, not quite. The story says, only to discover that it held but a shallow pool of water at the very bottom, far beyond the reach of his beak. Wow, what an absolute shock. He finds water, but it's just this shallow pool, this tiny, incredibly frustrating amount, and it's completely stuck out of reach down a long, narrow neck. The text goes on to tell us he tries again and again to stretch his neck and drink, but every single attempt would prove in vain. And if something proves in vain, it means no matter how much effort you put in, no matter how hard you try, you are completely unsuccessful. The tension is really building now.
All right, it's time for our first interactive exercise. Roleplay number 1. I want you to literally step into the crow's shoes for a second. You are the frustrated crow. You've tried repeatedly to reach the water, but every single one of your efforts continues to, as we just learned, prove in vain. You're completely exhausted. So do you give up in despair? Seriously, answer out loud. Express that frustration using those key phrases. Say it with me. Did you try it? Getting these words out loud, really feeling what it means to have your efforts prove in vain or to give up in despair, that is exactly how you lock this vocabulary into your active memory.
So right at this turning point, the crow basically has two paths he could take. On one hand, he could give up in despair, which means throwing in the towel, admitting defeat, and, well, staying desperately thirsty. It's the easy way out. But on the other hand, he could choose the harder path, to pause to think. This means stopping all those frantic, useless movements to actually find a logical solution. And our clever bird makes a brilliant choice. Instead of quitting and giving in to despair, he chooses resilience. He pauses to think. And boom. It's like a cartoon light bulb just pops up over his head. Let's walk through this clever solution step by step. Step 1, he pauses to think and just calms his mind. Step 2, he finds these little stones or pebbles lying around and starts dropping them into the pitcher, one by one by one. Step 3, the water piles up. This dynamic verb phrase, pile up, is so crucial here.
It means to accumulate or gather into a heap, kind of like how dirty laundry piles up in your bedroom if you ignore it all week. Because the heavy stones take up space at the bottom, they literally force the water to pile up higher and higher. And finally, step 4, quench thirst.
Which brings us to role play number 2. I want you to challenge yourself here as an observer watching this amazing, victorious moment. As you watch the rising water finally reach the brim, meaning it gets all the way to the very top edge of the pitcher, how would you describe the crow's final action? Use that verb phrase we just talked about. Go ahead, shout it out in your living room or wherever you're listening right now. Yep, that's right. He is finally able to quench his thirst. And quenching your thirst means fully satisfying it by drinking after a really long period of needing water. Man, you can practically hear those refreshing, victorious gulps.
Now, before we reveal the fable's ultimate lesson, we really need to nail down 2 advanced vocabulary words that perfectly capture this entire situation: necessity and wit. So, necessity is a noun meaning the state of being required or indispensable. It's when you absolutely, positively must have something to survive, just like the crow's extreme need for water. Wit, on the other hand, is another fantastic noun meaning mental sharpness and inventiveness. Now, wit is a little different than just being generally smart or book smart. Having wit means you're inventive on the spot. It's that quick, clever, problem-solving brain power the crow used to invent his pebble trick when his back was completely against the wall.
And this brilliantly illustrates the golden quote of our entire story. Necessity is the mother of invention. Patience and wit accomplish much. I mean, the crow's epic struggle perfectly demonstrates this timeless moral. Because he had an absolute necessity, surviving that intense thirst, it literally forced him to invent a clever solution. He had no other choice. But here's the really beautiful part. The invention alone wasn't enough. He also needed the persistent patience to drop every single heavy pebble, one by one, and he needed the wit to understand how water displacement even worked in the first place.
So the whole point of this explainer is for you to actually take this language out into the real world. Let's do a super quick, rapid-fire review of all the essential verb phrases we've unpacked today. Go ahead and take a mental screenshot of this list for your ongoing English studies. Ready? We've got in search of, come upon, prove in vain, give up in despair, pause to think, pile up, reach the brim, and quench one's thirst. Guys, these aren't just dusty old words from a fable. These are incredibly dynamic, powerful phrases you can start using in your everyday English conversations right now.
And you know what's really fascinating about this story? It's how it applies directly to you. So here is role play number 3, the final challenge. I want you to reflect on your own language learning journey. When memorizing new English words feels difficult and frustrating, how will you use patience and wit so that you do not give up in despair? Don't let your efforts prove in vain. When you hit a roadblock, just be like the crow. Pause to think. Keep dropping those small pebbles of knowledge into your brain every single day, and eventually, I promise, your vocabulary will reach the brim. Keep practicing, stay incredibly curious, and thank you so much for joining me on this explainer.